It's mine. To be fair to the best of
Okay, hello everyone. Thank you so much for coming out on a Sunday. It's really lovely to see you all and be here in the garden with you. Welcome to Lighthouse Books and to our old Fringe. We're really excited to have Kate Fox here with us. If you don't already know who Kate is, she is a stand-up poet, spoken word artist and broadcaster. She's a regular contributor to Radio 3's spoken word cabaret The Verb, has made 2 comedy series for Radio 4, been poet in residence for the Glastonbury Festival and the Great North Run, and completed a PhD in stand-up comedy, which is really cool. She is the author of Where There's Muck, There's Bras, published by Harper North, and various poetry collections. She's also a neurodivergent advocate whose latest show, Bigger on the Inside, explores neurodiversity through the lens of Doctor Who. Just a few housekeeping things, I'm sure we're a majority neuro-spicy audience. There might be some noises around because we share the garden with other businesses. You can take some quiet time in the shop if you like, or walk around the garden. Please feel free to do that, and just sort of go and come back in. Kate will speak for about 45 minutes, and then we'll have a signing back there where you can also ask questions. But I hope you enjoy, and thank you so much, Kate, for being here with us.
Lovely. Yeah, shall we? So I'm going to sort of have decided, right, that for me, this is going to be a relaxed performance for me, as well as hopefully. I was thinking about relaxed performances, and I was like, why can't a performer have a relaxed performance? So I'm going to mostly sit down, more chilled. I'm not going to pressure myself to memorise all my poems. They are mostly memorised actually, but it takes about 25% more experience to definitely do it. Yeah, just thought I'd let you know that. But the bit where you get to be relaxed, and I love how JJ pointed out, just head up around the garden, you'd still be able to hear me, I think. You're wondering if I need to be a bit louder. Maybe I do, because it's windy and it's windy. You've got a little blue pack. Now, in your little blue audience pack, you have a little pencil and a postcard thing if you want to doodle. The postcard is also for feedback. So now a complicated set of decisions. Would you want to keep it? Would you want to have it at the end? I don't know. I can't make the decisions for you. It's nice when some people give them to me and some people keep them, I think. Although, again, that's quite communal. You've also got stickers. Explain the stickers. And I think probably Fergus and Sonny, who are here at the front from Amaze and the Autistic Mutual Aid Society of Edinburgh, they might have facilitated the first place where I saw something like this in action, and I now see it at Altscape. Basically, if you don't want to interact with anyone at all, really in any way, red sticker is your thing. And I'm going to suggest, if you would, we could test it out in this audience space. if you're like, I do not want Kate to interact with me, or maybe it would be so nice for no one at all to interact with me while I go out of here into the bookshop. Go for red. And only will, most people do. And imagine, and then when you were a bit like, oh, it's almost daring to think of it, isn't it? Yes, which is why I want you to practice. If you're a bit like, yeah, that would be quite cool. Like even if you was like, maybe it would be nice to be interacted with. But just that, this is quite an exciting permission. Maybe you should go red. Amber, in this context, I don't know really, because in Artscape, the autistic conference, it's and retreat, it's like, I only want to interact with people I know, because that can be less stressful. I suppose if you, I don't know, in this context, what would Amber be? I don't know, like, if you know me, maybe, oh no, let's make it mean what it means. Yeah, only people you know. Because I have prosopagnosia, which means I have difficulty recognising faces, I mostly won't know whether I know you or not, if you see what I mean. Anyway, you know. Oh my god, I made that so complicated, I'm sorry. Don't go off script. And green is, please interact with me, fellow humans or kids, please. I just want some connection. So I'll leave you. Oh, we've got green over there. I'm gonna, oh, I don't know, I'll ask you your name. What's your name? Kate.
Whoa.
You see, it was meant to be. Green. Oh, and you had the thought of, but actually you're like, no, green. On your way out, you could go red, like if you wanted, just to practice. Anyway, there's something else. Oh, right, yeah, exactly. Chaos out there. Oh, and you've got earphones too, if you'd like to soften the sound of pain or anything. Okay. I'm going to do like more of an official start, and I'm going to stand up for this bit, and then I'll probably sit down again, so that we feel like, ooh, something's occurred. And I will even, on my phone, do even though really I'm not the doctor, and this isn't Doctor Who, but it'll get us in the space. Okay, so we're here in 2024 in the garden. Between performer and audience, and each space in a venue is something invisible and weightless and powerful as electrons colliding. The stories we hear and tell will abide to make us bigger on the inside. So, why Doctor Who? It's funny because I didn't used to explain at first when I was kind of doing any of these poems or the original version of what is not quite the show, something like the show. I just thought it was obvious, but it's not totally obvious to everyone. So, for me, the Doctor in Doctor Who, which I have been watching since 1981, when the regeneration from Tom Baker to Peter Davison was just happening. The Doctor is a neurodivergent character, really. To me it is clear that they think, feel and process the world / worlds differently to the majority of people around them. Now, I'm not saying that they could get a diagnosis, you know, it was hard enough for me as a woman to get a diagnosis on the NHS. I don't think that an alien with no fixed blood and 2 hands has a particular chance, really. If I would certainly pick some of the doctors out as sharing my actually not official diagnosis, so I'm self-identified as ADHD. Basically, I did the autistic part in 2017. I haven't done the ADHD part, but I'm fairly certain that describes me, and as to whether I go there one day, it's a bit of an open question. Anyway, so I think Georgie's doctor, ADHD. Tom Baker's doctor, ADHD. David Tennant's doctor, ADHD. For me, it's less. I don't know, we could debate the others. We've got 45 minutes and we wanted to go into we wanted to do this. And also, so having Doctor Who was a lens for me to explore neurodiversity and analyse the body. through regeneration. And that feels important because I'm excited about where the future of neurodiversity acceptance and true understanding, and even more excitedly to me, neuro-queering, the next step where we mess up all the concepts entirely. To me, potentially, we're in an exciting place. And I keep seeing notes of hope, and I keep seeing notes of like not hope, and oh my god, what's what? But also quite a lot of hope. And I think I want to add to the hope. So I'm going to start with this poem, which is well, it's called Autistic Joy, but really it could be ADHD joy, neurodivergent joy. And I note that still in the diagnostic criteria, the particular quality of neurodivergent joy, which is how I recognise many of my fellow neurodivergent humans, is still not in the diagnostic criteria, but it should be. This is a list of things that bring me the joy. So, octopuses, sparkly things, sparkly octopuses, dungarees with dogs on. Dogs with dungarees on. The dress worn by the server at Pret with guinea pigs and pockets, and as she pointed out when we all got excited together, little bits of cucumber and apple that they would recognise as their own food. A retro flavour of snap. A Seabull vacuum cleaner bought after extensive joyous research. Apparently some people say that shark is, which has a less interesting history. Anyway, sorry, I am digressing. Electric blue light through stained glass windows in a perfectly furniture polished scented church. The right rhyme at the right time and the unchimeability of orange. A perfect pun. Pattern spotted in it, icing on a dulcie bun, a bedspread, somebody's conversation. That time, returning to a perfect pun, that time my friend at the Buddhist retreat said if we got COVID now, it would have to be the strain Omicron. A new fact about your faith. And a notebook perfectly unlined, the endless sparks and connections of your own mind. Put that in your pipe. Call it diagnostic. No one does joy like a joyful autistic. We've got the kind of jazz hands, originally British Sign Language applause, which is noisy. I would say, do whichever's comfortable for you. If you've never done the jazz hand thing, maybe it's a good time to try it out, and although you will then sometimes forget and get confused and discoordinated, all these things are fun. It's funny, but I'm certainly finding the sound diffuses in the garden actually. It can be quite overwhelming sometimes in big groups. Let's time travel. Let's go back. Well, I forget to do this. This is the mysterious time travel calendar, which is my equivalent to TARDIS. So it will take us to places where it wants us to go. So I should pretend that I don't know where it's going, and I forget to do that. Let's see. Where we're going to begin. Aha! No, sorry. When it's a show in a theatre, there'd probably be a sound effect and some lights, but we just have me getting excited. 1963. 1963, of course we're going there, because that's when, as some of you will know, and I'm not assuming that you're all Whovians, you might never even have watched it. Actually, pretty interesting to know though, unless you have read Interaction Badger. See, bear in mind, there's a subtle social pressure from me, probably subliminally, for you not to go red, but honestly, it would be alright. That's it. If you're a Whovian, would you describe yourself as a Whovian? Put your hand up. Whovian. And then there's more, well, yeah, I think the next level down is like, really quite enthusiastic about Doctor Who, but probably not going to come out with random facts like, ooh, Godfrey played a Sontaran in 1972 and then went on to play Bergerac's Left Toe in a serial about actors who've been in Doctor Who series. Is that the level you're at, Hansel? Yeah, that's the level I'm at, I would say. Oh, but you're a bit above that, yeah, exactly. Again, I'm creating complex decisions. Anyone never watched Doctor Who? Oh, that's time to the audience then. Some of this might be baffling to you, and yet educational is what we can hope for. So in fact, I would especially tell this to the audience. So basically, Doctor Who started in 1963, and the BBC were essentially wanted to make an educational series where a man, William Hartnell in this instance, travelled through time and mansplained history to his granddaughter is basically what was happening there. He was doing it in a police box, and then the conceit was that the police box got stuck in a particular form, the TARDIS, a police box, but was still able to be camouflaged and yet could not go too far out of its original form. And I think there's a symbol already for a certain type of neurodiversity. Some of us are the TARDIS, and all of us, everyone, is bigger on the inside, just to explain the conceit of my book and collection. And poems are bigger on the inside, lots of things are bigger on the inside. Obviously, we could go on, it would be quite a long list. Pancreases, bigger on the inside. Anything really, if you dismember it, anyway, you won't go down that tangent. What's going on? So, 1963. What else we have is, so, we've got here a picture of Lorna Wing, who was a very important figure in early autism creation, or construction, let's say. And I think I can tell that better in the poem than trying to explain her. And I'm really glad that I met her once, because in some ways, Lorna Wing, the idea is the autistic spectrum and the triad of impairments, which have meant that so many women have not been identified earlier. It's kind of down to Lorna, so she's kind of formed an idea of autism that in some ways I would definitely rail against. On the other hand, I think her idea of what she was trying to do was holistic and wise and progressive. And certainly in 1963, a group of parents of kids who had learning disabilities and were completely, in 1963, written off as literally ineducable and were called in official language imbeciles. The aim of a group of psychiatrists and psychologists was to give them a label, to categorise them, to rescue them from this otherwise kind of abyss of just being left and written up, sort of. I'll do this poem about Lorna and end with my meeting. Is this also the point? Oh no, we'll say this later. So we don't talk about the Asperger's, we don't call it Asperger's syndrome anymore. In short, because Hans Asperger was a Nazi, it's a long story. We'll get onto that in 1975. Sorry, in the mysterious time that the time travel calendar night on. About Lorna Wing, sparrow, bird imagery goes throughout it. On the wing. Lorna Wing, sparrow bright eyes, medical student who specialised, then psychiatrist, mother to Susie, and the first to realise her non-verbal daughter and many more of us, including her fellow grey feathered psychiatrists who loved to flock together and systemise, would be recognised if we became something psychiatry could categorise. Because someone who struggles as seen can have their differences nurtured, become someone who flies. Her daughter and thousands of others were written off officially as idiots, ineducable imbeciles. So she helped develop a taxonomy to ornithologise, describing the active but odd, passive, aloof and rigid types is spotted alongside the ones with learning difficulties. Here was the autistic spectrum she named, but as so often, a linear label came to disguise the phenomenon it tries to describe. Stuck in a hide, binoculars fixed, the psychiatrist began to pathologise the children Lorna Wing had been trying to personalise, those she'd begun to recognise as not psychotic or stuck in their own worlds, but disabled by sensory overwhelm. These rare species, their feeding, mating, self-soothing, sensory seeking and avoiding, migrating or not behaviours ticked off, they went official with their lists and pictures in a way that came to dehumanise people now seen as robotic for the differences in the way they socialise. Though Lorna always knew she was one of the birds, not one of the twitches, not just one of the twitches. Nature never draws a line without smudging it, she said. And autistic traits help success in the sciences and the arts, something researchers are still only now beginning to analyse. But her holistic knowing was broken into parts for the diagnostic manuals, those inadvertent lies that get told when behaviour is mistaken for being. Losing Lorna's emphasis on dimensions of autistic experience, which allowed for new seeing of women, people of colour, anyone other than the white guys. I picture her in the diagnostic centre that still bears her name, just a few years before dementia clouded her sharp brain. Owl-wise, telling me she'd let a fox out of the conservatory just before I came. Being the first person to consider I might be more comfortable with the fluorescent light off. Her ability to imagine a better future for us still in flight. We're going to go on straight to 1975. I'll just read the bit in the book actually. So the book on the inside also goes through chronologically. There's quite a bit more in it than I'm going to read or perform today. And each section says something about Doctor Who, something about what was happening in neurodiversity world at that time, and something about me. So Tom Baker's first season as the Doctor continues with one of the most iconic episodes, Genesis of the Daleks, in which their creator Davros appears, and the Doctor makes his iconic, that's not the right word. And I've said the word iconic, the word written here is famous, and people are always overusing iconic for things that are not iconic. Anyway, it's famous. Have I the right speech, where he has the chance to prevent the creation of the Daleks by pressing two wires together. And basically, Terry Nation created the Daleks as an allegory for the Nazis. The perfect, productive folk who will just do as you told them. And essentially, scarily, because Hans Asperger was working at the time with the Nazis and sending some of his young patients either off to a concentration camp if he felt like they were not going to be useful, productive people in the German folk, or saving some of them, or they would be useful. Then we've got a direct ongoing analogy. And autistic children in 1975 are now characterised as robotic with no interior lives by psychologists. Even up to the 1960s, they'd been seen as psychotic and having an excess of imagination. There's lots of books that explore this history more and more now. The first place where I found some of this history was Steve Silverman's brilliant Neurotribes. 10 days after the serial Revenge of the Cybermen ends in 1975, me and my twin brother are born. And this poem, it's called We Are Definitely Not Daleks. And it is, I think, my manifesto for neurodivergent people, in case anyone ever says that we are. I have discovered though, like, if I read the Dalek voice too much in it, I just sound like the poet John Cooper Clarke. So I don't know why that would exterminate. Like, Daleks aren't Mancunian, I'm not Manc, I don't know, so I'm not going to do that. Anyway, right. Fluorescent lights, restless nights, social cues, uncomfy shoes, just tolerate. just tolerate, got distracted, didn't hear, just wanted things to be clear, our need for detail and accuracy, making others say that we interrogate. Relationships we've craved or feared, online dating is just weird. The pressure to conform or breed, hyper or hypo-sexual need, masks our fate. Supermarkets, an unexpected guest that hurts, the prickly label in that shirt. Sudden drills, traumatic bills, it's overload, not underuse of will that aggravate. The times we tried but didn't fit, were bamboozled or gaslit. Just want our tribe accepted more, not studied by boffins to find a cure and exterminate. Protection's not a metal case, it's empathy that won't erase the ways we're bigger on the inside. Here's a symbol of autistic pride. It's lemniscate. Thank you. I'm only just learning to be able to draw the infinity symbol, and clearly I should have a tattoo of it, and then I would just go, here he is on the picture. Thank you very much, Megan. Lemniscate. People who don't mean what they say want you to do things the normal way. Don't interrupt or complicate. Don't repeat or hesitate. Don't deviate. We're not one-tracking, but recognise a walk, a wince, a flick of eyes. Liberation for one is liberation for all. So hear us in our collective call. Cooperate. Like hard for the dominant neurotype normalities, not worth the hype. On diversity, the tide is turning. Unity is needed while the world is burning. So love, not hate. Love, not hate. Thank you. So, if we were Daleks, which we're not, that's what we say. I genuinely have forgotten, so this will actually be a surprise. Oh, 1989, yes. We're in 1989, because a lot of things happened. I was 14. When you are 14, I discovered at school permission to be eccentric is cancelled. It was also the year that Doctor Who was cancelled because the new BBC controller who had never liked it. And he noted things like how Bonnie Langford, who's now really cool, but at that time was not cool, she was just irritating. She was in an episode, a particular serial called Paradise Towers, and they did a thing where they asked audience response, audience approval rating out of 100 characters or serial as a litmus test. Bergerac, which some of you will remember, most of you not, some people Bergerac, he got an approval rating of 81 out of 100. Bonnie got 36 out of 100 in the Paradise Towers serial, and people said he wished she had been eaten by the monster. Just didn't help. This was also the year that after Lorna Wing's intensive work and others, mass diagnostic tests started going out to more psychiatrists and psychologists. And also the year that Rain Man came out and set a certain image of a certain type of autistic savant man in the public's brain that I would argue still persists to this day. Also, the Berlin Wall fell. The end, or the beginning of the end of a certain version of the world, and the beginning rise of neoliberal capitalism. Far more pressure on people to become individual productive units. And that had a huge impact on normality was supposed to be. Amid all this, luckily I had a refuge in the library. And for me, at that time, I was going to say obviously, undiagnosed autistic girl in a comprehensive school in Bradford, Books and words were my refuge. They were how I would eventually find my tribe and my living and my way of being. After a particular Doctor Who episode, this is called Silence in the Night. I was a library kid, among the dusty shelves at it, browsed, discovered new worlds, from what Katie did to Ridley Walker to Sweet Valley Harry, learning how to be contrarian, adult conversations with the librarian, reading The Guardian, Hansard, Private Eye, loosening my strangulating school tie, escaping break times, rainy break times, warm and dry, and the echoing doors filled with dinner ladies, bullies and bores. Once and always a library kid. Loving islands or going off-grid, finding sanctuary with others or gently alone, in your room, on a beach, in your car, on your phone, or deep, deep inside yourselves, still miles and miles of library shelves. I'm always really happy when I discover that there are still school libraries, because I think a lot have been got rid of since 1989, but there are still some. Anyone here a librarian working in a library? There are words book chats and things. Okay. We're nowhere near the future. I better get a crack on, actually. But where do we need to get through, or what do we need to get through to get there? We're avoiding the 90s entirely. A dark time. Dark images in the world of neurodiversity and Doctor Who. You could also ADHD diagnosis if you were a young boy running about up and down the school corridor, otherwise you were lazy. Girl or female identifying, you definitely can't get an autism diagnosis or ADHD diagnosis. Also, it's the 90s. Everywhere smells of impulse and links. And there's no telling if you wake up at 2 a.m. These were dark, dark, dark times. So we're not dwelling on that. We're going to 2005 because Doctor Who came back. Yes. But we've also not mentioned Paul McGann's Doctor Who. The Whovians would be upset about that. Or they wouldn't, because mostly they hated Paul McGann example. Okay, so in 2005, Billy Piper, David Tennant, well before then, Christopher Eccleston. What can I say about this time? So I could definitely go through Saturday. Oh, okay. Right. If summarise this, as we sound familiar with, Doctor Who back found tribe, brackets, counselling, poetry, sting. That's the poem I'm going to do. But yeah, it's by 2005. I trained as a radio journalist. I was lucky there was still kind of grants available at that time where I could go to university and do a postgrad. I'd been to Tyne Met College to do a counselling course because I was always trying to work out the rules of people, as people are very confusing, and as we know, at least if you do something like counselling or psychology, you can work out the rules of these mysterious people things. But luckily for me, I did person-centred counselling, which inadvertently helped me learn how to be present in myself and my body in a way I never previously had managed to do. But that's a much longer story. Summarising there. Do we not talk about relationships in this version of the show? This seems quite important. Oh, I'm going to do this poem. It's not in this version, but it's because you are nice, and I feel sort of like I want to share more intimately. I think that way. No offence to my last audience. Okay, I'm going to do this poem actually. Although trigger. Ooh, burgers. Can I give you an advance trigger? Sorry, I was going to say about trigger warnings. Trigger warnings, I think, generally given ineptly, like I'm about to give them, like maybe in the middle of the show, where no one has any opportunity to do anything about it. It's too late, really. So my trigger warning would be, ooh, poem with loads of dodgy relationship things in, because he was having relationships in, as the poem says, the era of Jimmy Savile and the Spice Girls. You know, social norms were dodgy. But Fergus, I would love to do the poem about your mum, actually, and how does that feel? I kind of wanted to do it because you're here, but I could have considerately told him that in advance, because I know. Right. Okay, but first the relationship. Okay. It's called Turn Left. I'm alexithymic, as many, or maybe I'm recovering alexithymic. Those of you who don't know what that is, it's broadly speaking. But it's not. It's a label for a kind of difficulty being able to name and identify and process your feelings and emotions. They've got better for all sorts of reasons. But at this time I hadn't. So that's why it's a little bit, sorry, I'm setting this up a bit too. It's just I really read this as a really, I'll just get on with it. Right, turn left. I'm not saying I made bad relationship decisions, but when I was 16, I lost my virginity to a 46-year-old gun-runner. My choices guided by a mixture of Jane Eyre and Doctor Who. Though of course, the latter is not true. Before it returned in 2005, there was no sex in the Whoviverse, despite Perry's low-cut tops for the dance. So what was worse, I had to go by my undeveloped internal compass, Cosmo's advice page, social norms in the era of the Spice Girls and Jimmy Savile, and make do. At least they were mostly nice men after the unfortunate sociopathic start, enjoying some of my still quite masked quirks and kind to my heart. But 2005's return of Who meant that nothing less than crying on a Norwegian beach while the love of my life fades to a hologram would do. Or someone who would guard my tomb for 2,000 years like Rory did for Amy Pond as the last centurion. Oi, who said trauma bond? My marriage didn't, got married, and it was really nice mostly. Sorry, so I'm slightly skipping over all the feelings and all the narrative. My marriage didn't survive me exploring my more autistic me, though discovering who you actually are when you're undiagnosed neurodivergent is a long and difficult journey. And now, I'm no longer the manic pixie dream girls of the Stephen Moffat era, more like Saga from The Bridge, or actually Vera. And now my relationship rules come from attachment and trauma experts on Instagram, noticing red flags and boundaries, expressing who I am. So if I saw an ad for a gender fluid, 2,000-year-old neurodivergent digital nomad, hashtag van life, seeking a companion for adventure, fun, travel, planet saving, and occasional Netflix and chill, experiencing screaming and running an advantage, triggering experiences and memory wiping a high possibility, have I learned my lesson? Would I feel bereft if I broke the pattern and swiped left? Because I'm not going online again. Ever. No online dating. And definitely not in Newcastle, no offence, fellow Northern people. Did slightly think, and in fact I did once go on field, when I was on field, in Edinburgh. And I was like, oh, the people are more interesting. The field, for those of you who don't know, I can't remember the tagline now, something like, online dating for more curious people, which is a euphemism for people who like BDSM. Now, unfortunately, I do not like BDSM. I do not like him. But the people on the field are mostly neurodivergent, friendly at least, and spell much better than anyone anywhere else. So, it's genuinely true. And but I did have to put in quite. Often people took no notice, like, I did put really clearly, I do not like pain. I took no pain, no pain. Ooh, I don't look like pew with my cat of nine tails tomorrow. No! Sorry, I've digressed again. And he's streaming to people. Right, I'm probably overrunning. All right, let's go.
Yeah.
Okay. Aha. student. And this is where, so it was quite a crucial time. I had a general realisation that I was possibly, probably autistic. I'd actually begun exploring it by doing a show, an early version of a show called A Portrait of an Autist, as a young woman that was going to explore and reveal at the end whether I was autistic. The level of knowledge I had at that time of autism can be shown by the fact that I genuinely was imagining that maybe I would have electrodes put on my head and someone would be able to tell me yes or no. I had a lot of learning to do, but luckily I turned up at the NAS Professional Conference in 2010 and heard the work of Diana Marie, who is Fergus's name, who is a really, really important figure in the history of neurodiversity activism, and along with Gwen Lawson and Mike Lesser, these three came up with this concept of monotropism, a different theory of autism, which, luckily my poem explains it better than I will. Essentially, the idea that basically autistic folk and ADHD folk, we get on better when our brains can just focus on one thing at once. And our brains have an interest system, which means basically we get charged up by the things we get charged up by, and we don't give a shit about the things we don't give a shit about. I don't think they put that in the scientific language, but just something like that. And therefore, you develop according to your interests. And also it would be good if people didn't ask you to do 12 things at once. So I'm going to illustrate that in these two points. The first one's more prose really, and then I'll do a poem that I think illustrates it. But this is called Scarce Attention. I last saw Dinah catapulting across Peter Miller and Dalgety Bay in a pair of coconut shells. Her son told us to think of her when we saw rainbows, and I did. Some of these bits in between now are quotes from their paper. Attention is finite, focused as a torch beam, diffuse as a fountain. At any one moment, the amount of attention available to a conscious individual is limited. The limited availability of attention plays a fundamental role in everyday life. Cut a flower, it does not leave. The sap withdraws, but the seed flowers again. Dinah recites her childhood poem in the improvised sick room where she sits yellow and dying while her old friend Sue makes lentil soup for visitors, and I fiddle with the voice memo settings on my iPhone with more urgency than usual. Monotropic focus will mean both tending to perform the task well and tending to lose awareness of information relevant to all other tasks. Things I have thought could be added to the diagnostic criteria for autism. Collecting mushrooms. Having a fantasy of moving to a commune or island in Scotland. Liking octopuses and or me. Dinah knows she is lichen, that there are more bacteria in her gut than stars in the galaxy, that we are all processes. The individual with autism tends to be a phenomenologist, trying to learn from what is seen, heard, felt, smelt, rather than from what can be implied or inferred from these sensations. Dinah's Doctor Who costume will be a hoodie, an anorak and walking boots, an Opinel fungi tucked in an inside pocket, along with a tangled handful of Hyndem rapandum, Griffula frondosa and Agaricus bisporus. But above all, Monotropa uniflora, the mushroom sharing her theory's name, its mycelium strands connecting those of us who thrive when we can focus on one thing at a time. Individuals on the autistic spectrum tend to be either passionately interested or not interested at all. Feeling intensely the joy of connecting, the pain of being stuck in a glass house, confused by sudden shake-ups outside our tunnels of attention. Dinah campaigned for computers and assistive tech, so autistic people in care could communicate their needs and interests. I forgot to turn my Wi-Fi signal, so some parts of the interview I record end up in slurred robot voice. Repeated failure to meet their own and other people's expectations may lead to dread, a dominant emotion for many people with autism. I hope I've captured Dinah's most important part, how she's dying happy because she's lived her mission for a fairer world, and now more people are pushing that boulder up that hill. Remember, she said, your enemy's interests overlap with yours. You just have to keep on planting the seeds. Love your neighbour, change their mind. We think the root of the social problems, sometimes regarded as core in autism, is probably attention. Peter Capaldi's doctor saying, above all, be kind, just kind, in my head. Badges on scarves still carry down his phrases, weird pride, productive irritant that have lasted from her time on her unit equivalent, the National Autistic Task Force. In a social world in which rules were simple, clear and invariant, monotropism might not be a hindrance. She fought for autistic liberation even before realising it was her own, knew no one group gains freedom alone. As she said, where you focus your force is not usually a medical matter, but underpins the stuff that distinguishes one human from another. The reward for neurotypical people for the effort of tuning into the interests and emotional states of monotropic individuals may taste networks of stars, constellations of fungi, rhizomes of humans, diffuse perspectives, ways of being held in harmony, held in tension, revealed as Dinah compelled us to pay deeper attention. And now, I know there was a lot in there, I would strongly recommend buying the book to reread it, that's all I can say. Attention tunnel, I think this illustrates what it feels to me when I'm focusing on something and getting interrupted. Don't pull me out of the attention tunnel, where scattered thoughts gather and where time collapses and scattered thoughts funnel. There's a toll to pay to enter here, but once I'm in, money, post and socks disappear. Don't pull me out of the attention tunnel. It's nothing personal about you. It's just I'm not as interested in what you're inviting me to do. Don't pull me out of the attention tunnel. It's like pulling a barnacle from a rock. Sticky residue will be left behind. I'll only have half my mind. It's like interrupting any people in their flow. I mean, nobody would go to Ronnie O'Sullivan queuing up a championship shot. Ronnie, would you like to see this new carded that I have got? Or to Simone Biles in quadruple axle poise. Simone, what do you think of neoliberalism and also boys? Or to David Tennant about Hamlet will be or not be at the RSC. David, what do you want for your tea? No. Don't pull us out of the attention tunnel when we're a laser beam that can focus and think our mind and body for once in sync. It's the pain of our awareness pulling back. It's like a turtle neck into its shell, retracting. So don't pull us out of the attention. I forgot. Because your attention is distracting. I should have finished 2 minutes ago. We haven't got to the future. I think I should slightly skip over 2017, though it was a very important year, I'll just say why. First of all, first female doctor, yes, and from Yorkshire. And it was also the year that I got my diagnosis and also became a doctor, as JJ mentioned in the intro, a doctor actually of stand-up, which is confusing to people. So I thought, are you going to need a PhD to go and live at the Apollo in the future? And I'm like, no, not a PhD, a penis, yes, not a PhD. Anyway, she said, in her first, she said as the doctor, when she was in Sheffield, lots of aliens in Sheffield, it turns out, she said, let me get this quote right, about her regeneration, and this is exactly how I felt after my diagnosis. It's as if there's echoes of who I've been and a shadow of who I'm going to be, and I have to hold my nerve and follow all these new instincts. And that really is how I've felt in the 7 years since, which feels like it's gone in a flash. Some of those pandemic times, which doesn't count, I suppose. But that process of learning who I am, whatever that means, because of course who you are can be quite differently at 3 in the morning, 7 in the morning, in Edinburgh, in Newcastle, but whoever the broad dimensions of who I am might be, particularly who might I be when I'm less masked, if it's safe to not mask, to not camouflage, to not be 1960s police box, to show the bigger on the insideness of me. That's my journey, and everyone I know that is going through that journey finds it a complicated, sometimes joyous, sometimes confusing journey that has to be explained to other people, and that can be really difficult. It has to be explained to yourself. Sometimes it has to be sat with till you've got it. What I want to say is, I really, really, really believe that when we travel to the future, which we are feeling the foreshadowings of now, a future genuinely accepting of neurodiversity, I reckon we'll all the humans, if there are still any of us left due to all the terrible things that are happening, anyway, the few of us left living in caves, and just no, sorry, be optimistic about the future. Sorry, those of us left, what will happen, right? There's a model for the process that we're going to undergo. We're going to enter the Academy of Unlearning, and there is a model of it. It's Artscape, the conference/retreat for autistic people that's been going in this country since 2004, so it's its 20th year this year. Is that right? 2004? Yeah, that doesn't feel, I feel like there should be an anniversary, but maybe they're not doing that thing because it's autistic people, they're not going, hey, we're 20 years old, look at us. There'd be a statue if it was any other thing. Anyway, it's been going approximately 20 years, maybe actually 20 years, 200 or more autistic people gathering, having talks about this year. The theme is Autistic Joy, actually, so I'm doing the more theatre version of my show out there, and how joyous to gather together in joy. It's like Autistic Utopia. So this is called the Academy of Unlearning. Really, it's about all the things. Pretty much end here, and then I will go over the sign books and take any questions. Oh, but we're always going to ask people online, but they need to start looking now because people can't process it. So if anyone online has a question that they would like to ask me, I don't know why. Well, not you lot, because you couldn't get the opportunity to just like lurk around unless you've got red and. But, anyway, right.
I've told the online people.
But the future, again, you've got to buy the. I wouldn't normally push buying the book, but in this instance, genuinely, to get the full, all the stuff I've missed out, please get the book. It's got more future in. It's bit, you know, so academy schools are the worst place that I've ever been. I went to one and they made the kids, so I was doing a poetry performance, they got the kids to nearly literally marching. They had to sit all in the same way with their arms folded. Imagine if you all had your arms folded looking at me and then your legs crossed and then fixedly staring at me because you have to track where I move. That's what they had to do in their school. Oh, imagine, I mean, eating some grass there, that won't be allowed in an academy. Oh, no. This is the answer. The Academy of Unlearning. We still have an acronym to tell you how to sit. It is SAYL, sit as you like. The Benjia's low, the restless pace, the rabine backs, obviously. You can put your hand up, no one takes corrections personally. Or type, or draw your answer if you prefer. You can swap out interaction badges, green for please initiate, amber for only people I know, red meaning no interaction please. The lighter is all on dimmers. There's warning if someone goes to switch on the pink light. but it's more about being considerate than polite. There's also a quiet dining room where even the cutlery doesn't screech. You can bring your own food. People will sympathise if your favourite brand has been discontinued. Talks and classes are relayed on big screens. Knitting or doodling along is fine. Passion projects encouraged. These days understood. It's like the world but better. Eye contact, facial expressions, body movements are not policed or queried. There's an awareness of how energy ebbs and flows in people and spaces. How abilities and needs change hour by hour or more. Of the wisdom in accommodating everyone to find their own homeostasis together, like cells in one body, circulating. Between performer and audience and each seat in a venue, there is something invisible and weightless and powerful as electrons colliding. The stories we hear and tell will abide to make us bigger on the inside. Thank you very much. As we have established, actually my favourite audience for some time. What you always in common with my other favourite audience was actually small, wasn't it, altogether, and my, say, strong majority neurodivergent. Actually very smiley, thank you. No obligation to be smiley. Good. Oh, were there any questions from the random people? Any treasured audience members far away over there?
Yeah. No questions online.
No.
So, yeah.
Right, so I'm going to be over there signing the books. Huge thank you again. Big thank you to I'm so, for me, at the Fringe, which I'm aware is busy, overwhelming. I would always come to this bookshop in its previous incarnation now, and it was a beautiful space, and a space where I discovered ideas that were not available to me elsewhere, and that was really important. So to then actually be here in this lovely garden, in this space, contributing a bit